Hello and welcome back to the Becoming Unleashed show. We are so excited that you are here and so excited to share today's content with you. Here at the Becoming Unleashed show, we believe that entrepreneurs and founders, CEOs build a better future in the world's best workplaces when they are empowered to get free from the day-to-day so they can focus on growth. In today's episode, I interview my friend and co-founder Jarrod of CFO Expertise, where he talks about the unique tactics and strategies he's found as a fractional CFO and advisor to entrepreneurs when it comes to maximizing profitability. If you're an entrepreneur who wants to scale with more bottom line profits, tune in because today's episode is definitely going to help. Hey, what's up? And welcome back to the Becoming Unleashed show. And I'm here today with my friend and fellow founder, Jarrod Souza. What's up, Jarrod?
Hey, man. How are you doing?
Super stoked to have you on the show. Just to introduce our audience to you a little bit, I know you're a seasoned CFO. You've worked for some of the biggest brands out there in kind of our market and our world. You're the self-proclaimed financial Sherpa for e-commerce brands. I don't even know what that means, but that's really fun.
That's the point of it. Like, let's get into conversation. Let's talk about what that means, right?
Yeah, man. So you've got a wealth of knowledge working with all sorts of brands, but especially D2C brands in the e-commerce space. And one of the things I really love about you, Jarrod, is you think like an entrepreneur, which is not necessarily how some financial professionals think, right? You think about actually what does it take to scale a company entrepreneurially, and what are the things that actually increase profitability in a company. And so I'm really excited to talk about that and dig into that with you today. So did you, by the way, I don't even know if I've asked this question, but did you like fall into finance? How did you become the financial Sherpa? What's the origin story here?
Oh, man. I love that. It puts a smile on my face. I would say kudos to Clay Hebert. I don't know if you know him, but he did a TED Talk on the perfect intro. And so that's where I kind of pulled some of that out of. So yeah, the financial Sherpa for e-commerce brands, man, that's my intro. Yeah. So I went to school, got a business degree, worked for a few companies, did finance more on kind of like lending side and transportation industry. And then went back to school, got my MBA, which I now have a different perspective on that kind of education. But that's the progress of my life. Worked for a family company that was in the energy industry, did financial work there. And then from there, that's when I went into direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand and knew all of the financial background, but really grew in my experience in not the financial aspect, but the data analytics. So the non-financial data that you need in e-commerce to actually grow your brand. With that company, we scaled from 4 to 40 million in about 4 years. I mean, it was like, we ran hard. It was fun, but we ran hard. And then from there, I became the CFO at Michael Hyatt and Company. Eventually, that's why got me out to Nashville. And I had the epiphany that I wanted to start my own firm. Just felt like I could help out more entrepreneurs and serve them in a capacity that could really open their eyes and get clear vision on the strategy that it's going to take to accomplish their goals. Right. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the journey that got me here, man.
I love that. Financial Sherpa. All right. Origin story done. I guess, Jarrod, one of the things we were talking about before this episode started that I'm so excited to take our listeners into is understanding the difference between, financial management and what it actually takes to scale. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs who don't understand the financial expertise, as you said, the data analytics required to actually get the insight they need to scale their company. What would you say are some of the biggest kind of misnomers or mistakes that you see being made from your perspective that prevent companies, especially entrepreneurial companies, from scaling?
Yeah, I would say a cadence in knowing your numbers, right? So whether that's weekly, monthly, I mean, at a minimum monthly, right? But what I mean by that is not just your financial numbers, but what's your customer lifetime value? What's your customer acquisition cost? Like, how much is your email list performing, right? So like all of these things feed together that then lead into what ends up on your P&L, right? So these are like the non-financial metrics that affect your financial metrics, and you need a way to connect those. But I see a lot of companies that don't. And so
dig into that for a second, because there's gold there, right? You said there's the non-financial metrics and then there's the financial metrics, but connecting those, getting those connected. What do you mean by that?
So for example, financial metric would be your gross margin, right? Cost of goods. And I don't want to use all these accounting terms. I'm probably one of the few CFOs that doesn't actually like accounting. It's very black and white. So I'm like an FP&A, data analytics, that side of it. But you have to have accounting in there, right? It's a necessary evil. But you've got your gross margin, you've got your G&A, you've got your lean overhead, but then you have your selling expenditures. So one of the two most important things are, one, knowing your gross margin, knowing that, if your gross margin is 90%, every dollar you make, 9 or 10 cents is already gone, right? You only make it 90. So when you're forecasting, but then also digging into like customer acquisition costs, because that's going to affect that next level on your P&L. And that's how we structure P&Ls, is cost of goods sold, selling expenditures, and G&A, which is your fixed overhead. So within that selling expenditures, that's where e-commerce brands can make or break, right? If your customer acquisition cost is going over what your customer lifetime value is, then you're just like flushing money down the drain, right? So the number one metric you need to know is, what is your customer lifetime value? Because that sets the parameters, the bumpers around what you can actually spend to acquire customers.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you just said that a lot of people don't catch and understand is that knowing your numbers gives you leverage, because it allows you, as you said, to, when you've connected what you want, which might be more profit, more gross margin, to something that you can actually control, like customer acquisition cost, or even if getting really granular, right? Opt-in rate, abandoned cart. There's all of these other much more targeted data analytics that you have so much more control over, that when you know where the bottlenecks are, when you know where the things are that aren't hitting benchmarks, you can immediately prioritize, lean in, and exert massive leverage over your lagging results via the right leading indicators.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And at the end of the day, somebody once told me this, that numbers are friendly, right? Like, but if you don't know your numbers, how can you pivot? Right? Because like anybody that scales knows that you're not scaling on this straight line, right? It's like the flight to the moon. Like you're having to pivot almost every week, right? And make corrections. But if you don't have those numbers in front of you, then you're just kind of going by your gut. And most entrepreneurs have a good gut feeling, but it can only last so long, right? You combine that with data and you become like Superman or Superwoman.
In the words of Lil Wayne, people lie, numbers don't. Right. So
you just pull out Lil Wayne. Yes.
I think there's so much truth in that statement, though, because we even lie to ourselves as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right. We tell ourselves stories, and it's one of our superpowers, right? That we can tell stories, convince the market, convince customers about what could be or what should be. The danger in that is when we start telling ourselves stories, or we start telling our team stories, and we don't dig into the data and the facts as well. Yep. And I'm guilty of this as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Let me give you an example that's like a non-financial, right? So when I was serving as CFO for the company, our customer service manager, he would come in and he'd just be like, the wheels are falling off. Like, we're having this number of complaints about this issue with our product. And then we dig into the data and we're like, well, this is only like 0.5%. It's not even 1% of our customers that are complaining about this, right? But in his mind, because that's all he's hearing, and then you take a step back and you look at the data, and you're like, oh, no, we can overcome this, right? It's not as big of an issue. But if you don't know the data, then everybody else would have just been flying around the room trying to fix the issue, right? I think the other piece too is a lot of people avoid that financial aspect because of almost not knowing, right? And just kind of fear of knowing. Like, if you don't know what's really happening, you don't really have to address it. But then it becomes a perpetual problem, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, I like talking to finance anytime, and I try and like open up that bridge, a sense of trust with people. Like, man, let's just talk about it, tear the Band-Aid off. Every business owner has issues within their company, right? We're all the same. So we just dig in and fix it.
That's so key, man, too. I love one of my mentors who says, nothing can change until the unspoken is said.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it starts with admitting certain things to yourself, but then it has to carry into being willing to be honest with someone. And like, I think, especially in the realm of finance, more than anywhere else, entrepreneurs struggle to be vulnerable. And I'm not telling you as an entrepreneur, you should go, air your woes to the world, social media, or even certain departments or areas of your team. What I am saying is you need some people you can trust when it comes to this area. When it comes to, like, if you actually want to increase profitability as a founder, you have to start by being honest about the issues with yourself and with the right key advisors. And I think that's where having someone like a CFO or a board of advisors who are financially minded, or, a second in command who is financially minded, gives you that sounding board of somebody you can actually go dig into the numbers with, get really real, get really honest about, and as a result, take really informed action to solve the issues and move towards your goals.
Yeah, for sure. And even kind of piggybacking on that, Richard, and what you guys provide in second in command is like somebody that can strategically advise you, right?
Mm,
Because if some CEOs like don't really know the decisions they should make, then it's my job to come in and say like, well, this is why you should go down this route and back it
mm,
up with data. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? And that comes to kind of the beginning part of our conversation, like how to scale. It's a multi-pronged approach, right? Like there's
mm,
the three pillars, like foundational pillars: sales, marketing, operations, finance, right? There's kind of across businesses. Most people focus on sales and marketing, right? They kind of
mm,
put the other two on the back burner. And then it's like, well, we need to know like financially how we're doing. So then they'll invest in that. But then they're scaling. But if you can't supply the service or product to your end users
mm,
operationally, right? They all three have to work in synergy with each other if you
mm,
want to properly scale. I mean, I've seen it a lot where people want to scale, they're scaling, focused on sales and marketing, and then we'll come in financially, have to clean things up. But then operationally, like there's not enough in customer service, they don't have supply
mm,
chain, right? And then all of a sudden they can't serve their customers, and you really start to see the customer lifetime value be affected there because it affects their brand, right?
mm.
So
Let's just get real, right? There is a lot of flash in the pan companies and founders and gurus who I see their ads, right? Or I see their success
are you
stories
gonna call
on
anybody out? I'm
Instagram.
waiting.
Well, and I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but
Yeah,
I will
I
say
know.
this. Most of the time, those founder-led companies that grow so fast and scale so fast, I've been behind the scenes, and you have two of those businesses. Their
Yep.
operations is a dumpster fire, and they
Yep.
are not nearly as profitable as you would think. Like, I
That's
have
right.
been behind the scenes of eight-figure companies who massively grew and 400x in a year and then 300x the next year, and their net income is pitiful, right?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and like it lends itself towards this. You just start to ask questions like, man, this is almost just ego and
Yeah.
vanity growth, right? Where you're again telling yourself a story that it's like, we're growing, we're scaling. Well, no, you're not actually. And I think there's a critical distinction to make between top line growth and actual scale.
Hmm.
And scale means that you are able to achieve exponential growth in revenue without a corresponding increase in cost, which results in a similar or better margin or net income, whatever metric you want to use.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
actually what scaling is. And
Right.
most people, when they think of scaling, they just think of top line, especially entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, you're not scaling unless you've addressed all three of those things you just talked about.
That's right. You want to know what one of the biggest lies and e-commerce brands, online brands don't really care about this too much, but brick and mortar used to write like the Inc. 5000 list. You
Mm,
know, like it's a vanity metric. It's based on top line revenue. I know people on that list that were in the top 100 that were on the verge of bankruptcy because they
mm,
were not profitable. But they're holding the trophy up in the air, right? Like it's just, yeah, that stuff drives me crazy when that gets touted because, like you just said, it's a vanity metric. They're not in a healthy position, right? So when you talk about scaling, it has to be in a healthy way if you want it to continue for years down
mm,
down the line. And we always align, some entrepreneurs don't want to scale, right? They want the lifestyle type brand. And so whenever we approach that, it's like you have to align the strategy with the goals of the entrepreneur, right?
mm.
So you have to listen and see what they actually want out of their business.
So good. Well, on that note, Jarrod, if you were consulting a listener, right? Let's say there's somebody who's part of our community and they're like, okay, I hear you guys. I want to scale, but I want to do it the healthy way.
Yep.
What are a couple of the most important things for them to be thinking about or pressing into when it comes to this conversation, increasing profitability? What would you high level recommend the questions they should be asking or the actions they should be taking to start to move towards health?
Yeah. My number one aspect is a strong financial foundation. And what I mean by that is making sure you're on the right accounting method, right? If you have a physical product, you have inventory, you have to be on accrual basis, all of that stuff, right? You have to know your gross margin, what's your bottom line. From there, you have to know kind of individual product like KPIs, like I talked about, customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value. So know these baseline metrics, and you can do that from a macro level, right? I create dashboards for my clients on a macro level so we can spot the trend. And then from there, you start forecasting and plugging numbers in. And it's like, okay, well, if we scaled at this point, how do we serve these clients? We're going to have to hire more people, right? So you get some labor efficiency ratios, and you start just drawing out the whole picture to see if it's worth it. Right? Is it worth it to go after this? How much is it going to cost us? What's the risk? What if it doesn't work, but we've spent this on marketing and hiring, right? And you can start playing with the numbers, and then you have a more informed decision, right? And the strategy. And if you're not hitting what's on the roadmap, you can pivot, right? So having that roadmap, being able to pivot, but going back, it's having the strong financial foundation and specific KPIs that, like I said, like customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, labor efficiency ratio. Because if it's like if you need a lot of employees to serve your clients, like you have to make sure, like you said, like you're not scaling, but you're not increasing your bottom line. Like you're just scaling top line. At the end of the day, nobody wants that, right? Like people talk about scaling, and that's what's in their mind is just scaling top line revenue. But then you get there and you're like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. Right.
So true. So true, Jarrod. Well, man, that's a really good insight. And I know for me personally, I'm more committed to health than ever before across all departments of our business. And I know today's conversation was super insightful for many people who are listening on that note. Jarrod, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, they might maybe want to tap into your expertise, especially if they're a D2C or e-commerce brand. How can they find you online?
Yeah, you can just go to cfoexpertise.com. And right there on the front page, I've got to schedule a call. So you can just book an appointment with me and we can get on the phone and have a discussion. I always like talking to people. So like, even if there's just questions, I can provide you insight or any value, man, just book it and we'll get on a call.
That's awesome. All right. And then the last thing we're going to do is end with what we call our lightning round, which is just a couple, sometimes silly, sometimes insightful, one sentence answer questions that you got to answer in rapid fire. Are you ready?
I don't know, man. I guess so. We'll go for it, but I'm not prepared for this. Yeah.
What are you most excited about in the years to come?
In the years to come, I think it's one sentence.
1 to 2 sentences.
Oh, okay. I'm rebranding my company from CFO expertise to the scale method. So
there you go.
I'm
That's a good one.
To that. Yeah.
Favorite movie, best movie ever made.
Oh, Usual Suspects.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. And pizza topping, what's your go-to?
Pepperoni mushroom.
Ooh, okay. What's something you do as an entrepreneur that drives your team crazy?
Oh man, when I'm thinking about how to analyze data, I'll create a new spreadsheet. And then I just file it away. Then I'll create a new spreadsheet. So now we're talking processes. Yeah. I mean, we're getting completely honest. So,
oh man.
Yeah, because I
just do that with Google Docs. Just do that with Google Docs, not spreadsheets. But we're on the same page there. Well, Jarrod, thank you so much for your time together today. Thank you for your insight, expertise, and wisdom. And we really appreciate having you on the show.
Brother, it was great. Anytime. I appreciate you having me on.
Wow, what a fantastic conversation today with Jarrod, and I hope that you were able to take this and apply it in your business to maximize profitability. Now listen, we do this free of charge as our gift to you to invest in you as a founder CEO. What you can do in return for us, if this content has helped you, is to like it on whatever platform or subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and also share it on social media. If this content impacted you, be sure to share it with others who it could impact as well. And if you do share it, we'll many times often see that, repost it, and maybe interact with you a little bit on social. Also, please be sure to leave a review on whatever platform you're on of the show, and that would help us get this message out further to more founder, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. Such an honor to serve you. Go make a difference, entrepreneur and visionary.